I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
Oh, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. Get more with Geico.
This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. All so that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I thank you very much for listening to That Will Nevr Work podcast. So, you didn't write your book just to have it sit on the shelf, did you? What if that book could launch your brand, your business, and even your legacy? Today, we're going to talk to Kelly, and she's going to show us how that can happen, and maybe even faster than you think. Let's talk about it right after this.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Nevr Work, an award-winning podcast where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
So I thank you very much for tuning in today. So we have Kelly in, and she's going to work out some challenges that we might have today. And most of you can go and listen to other podcasts she's been on. You can find out her background, all that type of stuff. So, we don't get caught up in that on this show here. So, Kelly, so many people believe that writing the book is the final goal, but you believe it might be just the beginning. So can you break down what it really means to turn a book into a business? Can you help us out with that idea?
Yeah. So thank you, Maurice. So I heard in the intro that you're an author, so I want to hear about your journey a little bit. But I think that for a lot of people, they write a book and they think, I'm gonna put this book out there into the world, and I've made it. I'm gonna sell 1 million copies and retire on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that book is there, there's more to it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it happen many, many times where people put a book out there and then, a month down the road, 2 months down the road, they go, well, why isn't my book selling? Right. Well, a big part, as you probably know, of being an author is the marketing part of,
Mm-hmm.
of having a book. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
we start with, we wrote the book, that what we think the work is done. We put it out there now and it's just going to sell. Like I like to think of it like Field of Dreams, right? I put it out there. I wrote the book and now the readers will come, right? But the reality is nobody's going to know about your book unless you have a marketing plan and
Mm-hmm.
you are sharing that consistently with the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that book, you need a marketing strategy for one, but then also your purpose for having that book, as you know, it can be tied to your business, your personal brand. It can be tied to, some other way of also bringing in income from not just the book sales, but other parts of your business. So those are all important factors to think about when you're putting a book out there into the world.
Mm. So I'll answer your question for real quick. So the podcast, That Will Nevr Work podcast, began because family members told me things were not going to work out, right? Friends said, Maurice, you think too big, it will never happen. So the name of the book is called Well, Why Not? The Workbook. And so it is the answer to the question to the podcast. Hey, you know what? We're going to transfer the doubts, all those type of things, whatever questions we might have. And so in this book helps us to walk it through of answering that question. Well, we can do it. We have that power within us. So those are the type of things to say, hey, you know what? I can do this, and that's part of just a small part of my marketing for my book. Is the second step or the second level of my podcast.
Yeah. So it's part of your overall kind of personal brand marketing
Yes.
strategy. Yes. Yes. Uh, so I love that comment that you made about like people said like this is too big, it's never going to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those of us who start businesses, sometimes we have really really big ideas of where we're going to go, and it doesn't always work out,
Right.
right? Uh, but I think that mindset is so important for any business owner or anyone
Mm-hmm.
who wants to go into business is to think big and don't
Mm-hmm.
put yourself in a box and think smaller. You know, you're just going to limit yourself if you think you can't do something,
Right.
if you think it's not going to work, right? But you have to have that mindset of like this is going to go far, this is going to do well, and that's what's going to lead you down that path.
And so, something you said in the green room of how you started your business and you grew pretty quickly, right? Now, did you anticipate that growth that fast? Were you able to see that?
So absolutely not. But so my story, you know, we started with talking about books.
Right.
I worked in publishing for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always worked very closely with authors. But after I left the publishing industry, I went into a marketing role, and
Mm-hmm.
I was a marketing person for 7, 8 years. In both of my roles, I was the person who was supporting the CEO, and I was helping them bring their dreams to life,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was helping them accomplish what they wanted. And I was really good in that role. I could get all the
Nice.
stuff done, and I could, I could see the vision, and I could, do all the tactics to get them there. Well, my company was acquired, and I started
Mm.
thinking when that happened, when you're in marketing, uh, the reality is marketing roles can be pretty redundant, right? When you bring two companies together, they're like, well, we don't need you anymore, we already
Right.
have a marketing department.
Right.
So I expected that. I knew that was probably what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a couple of years of thinking about my business and thinking about, what if I wasn't just the person behind the person anymore? What if
Mm-hmm.
I was the person who bet on myself, and I was in charge, and I was calling the shots?
Mm.
I never, ever in a million years, Maurice, would have made that decision to actually do it. It was just a dream for those 2 years until I was laid off last year.
Ah.
And again, it wasn't a surprise. I had been mentally preparing,
Mm-hmm.
I had been thinking about what was next. But when you really are faced with, it's time to make a decision,
Mm-hmm.
like either start this business or stop dreaming about it. That was the decision I had to make. And I decided I'm going to give this everything I've got. And within 4 months, I think I
Hmm.
had 4 full-time employees.
Nice.
And now it's been about 9 months, and I now have an additional 7 part-time employees. I decided to kind of go the part-time route and kind of build
Mm-hmm.
things up as we can.
Mm-hmm.
But I never would have imagined it. And yet I look back and I go, you know what? If I hadn't just done it, if I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't just pulled that trigger and said, I'm going to do this, and then went all in,
Right.
it never could have come together that way.
So I'm hearing you say, Kelly, that you decided not to play small
Right.
at some point because again, let's back up for a moment or something that you said. You said that you were behind the person, behind the person, behind the person, right? And a lot of times we get comfortable in that space, right? And so do you think that you were comfortable in that place for a long time, for a short amount of time, before you even were thrusted into making a decision? Because if your company wasn't acquired or folded or whatever it might have been, do you think you would have still been there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would have still been there. I think
Really?
if somebody hadn't pushed me off the ledge,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have made the choice myself, even though, I had been working for other people, and I had been a big part of, the decisions we were making as the company was
Mm-hmm.
growing. And, so it's like once I was on my own, I realized how much knowledge and experience I really had.
Mm.
I just didn't have the final, it was somebody else's final decision, right? It was somebody else's responsibility
Hmm.
to grow the company. Like I was helping them, but I didn't feel like it was my full responsibility. But I knew pretty quickly after I started my business, I was like, I should have taken that leap. And so now that is
Ah,
my message to people is
right.
like, if you are feeling that pull, that drive to like, I really want to do my own thing, I want to start it. I want people to know that they are capable of so much more than they think they are when they're working for
Hmm.
somebody else and they're being told, how to do things, or they're being told, who they are in their role. But that can be really limiting, right? And
Hmm.
one of the first things I noticed, Maurice, when I first was laid off, I started seeing these messages on LinkedIn, people saying, I have been, unemployed for 275 days and
Yeah.
I've applied for,
Yeah.
100 million jobs, I don't know, whatever.
Hmm.
Like these numbers that were really scary when I was
Hmm.
in that place right at first going, am I making the wrong decision by trying to start a business that might fail? Where, but these people are trying to find jobs and they can't find them. And this job market is scary and like, all these things. But I kept thinking, I'm not going to be that person. Like
Hmm.
275 days from now, I am not going to be the person saying, I can't pay my bills because I can't get a job. I just told myself that was not going to happen.
Right.
And I was going to I like being successful was the only option. And so, you
Wow.
asked me like, did you see it that it would work out this way? No, I didn't, but I
Hmm.
also didn't allow myself to have a victim mentality ever in that process. I was like, this is going to work. I'm going to grow this. I kept telling myself it was going to work, even though I couldn't see what that future
Right.
was. And I think that mindset is so, so important.
Yeah, and I think it's something that you said, the one key word through everything that you mentioned to me that's most powerful that a lot of us fall into is that word fail. We see that word and we get scared of it. So we fail to write the book. We fail to put out the marketing plan. So all that we're planning to fail, not even realizing that that's what we're doing, right? And so in that space, as you said, you were working with some publishers and things like that. Have you seen authors, in that space where they were planning to fail without really realizing that's what they were doing?
Oh, well, sure. I think that there's exactly like you said, there's the people that say, I want to write a book, and then they think about writing a book for a long time,
Right.
right? They maybe start on something, but then life comes up and they don't truly commit to
Mm-hmm.
writing the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the people that maybe they finish it and they think, okay, that's it, I'm done. And they don't really commit to they're maybe not realistic about what it's going to take to
Mm-hmm.
market that book and to actually, you know, invest in that time, because that's what it
Right.
is. It's an investment in time, in your time. But yeah, so I think that for anyone who's wanting to write a book, that's
Mm-hmm.
wanting to start a business, that's wanting to maybe build their personal brand, I think the most important thing is like that commitment to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to commit to writing every morning, give myself a
Mm.
word count goal every week or every month or whatever, and then stick to it, right? And force yourself to have that discipline to accomplish what you set out to do. And so I think that it's a subconscious thing. We're not
Right.
saying I'm going to fail, but we're not truly committing, and that's only going to set us up to fail.
I have a problem with commitment though, Kelly. I don't know how to do that. And a part of that commitment comes accountability maybe too. Maybe I don't understand that as well. And so you're saying to me that I need to sit down and maybe write, let's just start off with 500 words in a day. Well, Kelly, I don't know how to write. I don't know what to say. I don't think my voice is valuable enough. I don't think people want to hear what I got going on. Whatever it is, we talk ourselves out of it. And
Yeah.
so how do we flip that on its head? How do we change that narrative to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to fail, like you stated. Hey, I'm not going to be that person sitting here for the next 200 days, let alone 2,000 days. It depends on the situation. So how do we flip that on its head overall?
I think it's that daily commitment to ourselves. Like, so things are always going to come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get sick. kid's going to get sick. You're going to have, maybe you have a morning routine and you oversleep one day, whatever. There's things are going to come up. It's life. But I think what sometimes we can do to ourselves is, I had a bad day today. I didn't write, so now it's just over. I'm just done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or I had a couple bad days last week, so it's just never going to happen. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, give yourself some grace when you don't hit your goal for the day. Reset the next day and say, all right, back at it tomorrow morning, or I'm going to get caught up on Saturday, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But it's that constant reminding yourself of what it is that you want to, what you set out to do, what you want to accomplish, and then just continually realigning yourself with what that goal is. And not every day is going to be a great day. Some days are going to be, harder than others to accomplish what we want. Things are going to come up, but that's okay. Then reset the next day or the next Monday, or, whatever that looks like. I think that just constantly being in check with that is the most important thing there.
And and so as we are writing this book, putting this book together, and we're putting this plan together, have you seen people emerge better because they are committed to it, because they are dedicated to it, and now that this is now becoming who they are, they're starting to show their personality. They're showing that this is who they really are, their brand, and building their legacy. So have you seen those type of examples express themselves in them going through the process of writing the book and then ultimately accomplishing it?
Yeah. I want to tell you a story about Dawn. So first, I want to go back to something you said. You mentioned accountability, and I think that is that's an important part of the process too. If you don't have a coach in your life, an accountability partner, that's something to consider, right? So if I have set out this goal, I want to write this book, and I know I tend to have a goal and forget it or lose track of it or whatever, hire an accountability coach to meet with you every couple weeks, keep you on track, or keep you at least remembering that you have this goal that you want to accomplish, right? And that's something I've done with authors is help just be their accountability coach, where we set word count goals, and we check in on them every couple of weeks and make sure that you're on track. And if you get behind, we reset and we say, okay, here's what we're going to, here's the deadline that we set originally. Maybe we need to push it back, but let's keep moving forward. Right.
Right.
But the other thing is, you talked about that, I don't know what to write, or I don't know, so a big part of the writing process too, if people are wanting to write a book, is having as much organizational structure at the beginning, right? So outlining the book, coming up with the key points that you want to talk about in each chapter. So going back to Dawn, I told you I want to tell you a story about Dawn. So I actually have a course that teaches people how to write a book in 12 weeks. And we start with that. We start with, outlining the book, writing out the key point, and then creating a schedule. And, so it walks people through just step by step. Here's what to do each step of the way to get that book done. Dawn took my course, and this is probably the best transformation story that I have loved being with her every step of the way through writing this book. But she took my course, and she would email me during the course and ask me some questions. It's all an email course, so you get an email every morning, and it walks you through what to do that day. And so she would email me. We just built this relationship, and I got to know her really well. And she finished her book. She published it. And her book is about, she's a therapist. Her mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
And Dawn just felt this calling to write her book because she felt like she was dealing with these emotional issues of being a caregiver, these emotional, these feelings she was dealing with, and she couldn't find the book on it. She couldn't find a book that spoke to her feelings of loss of her mother during that time, right? And so she was like, I want to write this. So she did. She took the course. She wrote the book. It came out earlier this year, a couple months ago.
Okay.
And within the first week that book was available, She was asked to come and speak at an Alzheimer's event. She was asked to do a book signing at one of her local bookstores, and she was interviewed by her local news. And Dawn is the least marketing-minded person you can imagine, right? So she's not out there banging down doors for marketing and PR. She is, I believe that what came about for her
Right.
is the result of her just truly leaning into her message that she had that she wanted to share with the world. And she was so authentic in that,
Yeah.
that people were coming to her because of it. That's not a story everyone's going to experience, but I've watched it with her and it has just been really beautiful to see.
And first of all, congratulations, Dawn. If you're listening to this, just, so happen, I want to high five you, congratulations. And even to you, Kelly, high five, and I'm saying that because a lot of times, like you said, we don't see it. We don't see what the prospects are, what the opportunities might really be, especially from a personal perspective. Again, I'm just venting about Alzheimer's. Now, I can relate because my grandmother is dealing with that right now, right? And so with me being the eldest grandchild and for me to go in there into her room and she has no idea who I am,
Yeah.
I can understand that, right? So Dawn, thank you very much for that support, because I can understand how that feels and what that transition looks like. And sometimes, again, we don't feel like that voice is valuable. We don't think that other people can relate to our just throwing the stuff out there idea. And that's what it could feel like in the moment. And I know that's how I felt for myself of putting together Well, Why Not? It just felt like, hey, am I just putting this together just because? But it's really something that I'm dealing with, but it's other people that's out there dealing with the exact same thing, Maurice. So
Yeah.
a lot of times we talk ourselves out of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we spend some time thinking about what that true message is that we have to share, there we are all thought leaders in our own space, right? Like there are things that we all have to share. And I think that we often think like, oh, everyone else is doing that, or I'm not that person, right? That would go on stage and talk about this or write the book about it or whatever. But I've seen that, I've talked again about being the person behind the person and finally
Right.
starting to put myself in the spotlight. I did a speaking event last month where I was just telling my story of starting my company, and I realized how much it resonated with people where they were like, I want to do that. Like they were cheering me on in my success because they're seeing themselves in that. That's something that other people want. And sharing my experience with them helps them see that it's possible, that there's a path to that, right? And it helps them. And it feels weird because again, 20 years of my career, I was the person behind the person. I was not on stage. I was elevating other people.
Right.
But when I started sharing my story, I realized how much it meant to people. And we all have that ability within us. We all have those experiences to share, and it just looks different, right? But Dawn's has been beautiful. And she shared with me recently all of these messages she was getting from people thanking her for her book and how much it meant to them. And she said, I don't even know these people. And,
Right.
it just like was shocking to her how much she's already touched people. Because I've mentioned her in her story, I do want to just call out the name of the book in case
Sure.
other people like you are also dealing with a family member with dementia or Alzheimer's. So I mentioned her name is Dawn. Her full name is Dawn Brenneman Wirtz, and her book is called Memories Matter. So if you're somebody who is dealing with a family member who has Alzheimer's or dementia, that book is a great resource. So thank you for letting me share that, Maurice.
Listen, no problem. And also, did you assist her with that book?
Well, she took my course to write the book. Yes.
So did you not win as well?
Well, I get to share her story. I feel so great just being connected with her and getting to share that story. So yes.
And I'm saying that because sometimes we don't even count those type of wins. Like you said, a moment of transformation of sometimes we don't understand our own power and how it affects someone else's life. And I think that's a very powerful message as well. Let's not discount. I'm not saying that you are, but for those of you that are listening, let's not discount the little wins that we can get because that shows who we are. And that's all we're about right now. So I thank you very much, Kelly, for coming on the show and providing that type of inspiration. That's very inspirational for me. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and anyone out there, again, like if you're thinking about writing a book, what a great story, inspiration, like take that message seriously and start sharing it, whether that's in podcast interviews or, writing your book, telling your message on social media. Start practicing getting that message out there because you have something to share that other people can benefit from.
Wow. Well, Kelly, if they have a problem with trying to figure out where they need to go, where can they take your course and where they can find any other information from you?
Yeah. So my course is How to Write a Book in 12 Weeks, and it is available on my website. I'm sure, Maurice, you'll share that in the show notes because
Yes, I
my
will.
name is not easy to spell, but it is
It is not.
kellyschuknecht.com.
Yes, we will. All that information will be in the show notes. So for those of you who've been listening for a while, and for those of you that are new, it'll be right there. The links will be right below. And so you can get to it whenever you have the opportunity to, but don't forget to do it, right? Don't forget to click. And so, but Kelly, I thank you very much for coming on the show. But I do have one last question before I let you go. It's my would you rather question. Think outside the box. No parameters, no right or wrong.
Okay.
Would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
Ooh. Fork in the road.
And why a fork in the road? Why?
My thought process was, well, I don't know. I think that fork in the road is like 2 options. It's one or the other. You're either right or wrong, right? 3 doors is like, that's too many options.
Too many options.
I want one or the other.
Now, keep in mind, I said no parameters, right? So how about the doors with glass?
Ooh, I didn't think about that. Dang it. You're so right. 3 doors. What? They had to be glass. That's my criteria.
Who says the doors weren't already open? Like, you get what I mean? So that's why I said no parameters, right? And sometimes, again, I know I asked that question on the fly. And so, I'm pretty sure if you had more times, I'm pretty sure you could probably draw a whole diagram and, everything else with that. But I thank you very much for taking the time to answer the question, though.
It's a good question, and thanks for challenging me to think outside the box.
You're welcome. But it's all good, though. It's all in fun. It's all in fun because the other part of that, too, it allows everyone that's listening to understand how you process and how how it's good to kind of think on the fly, all those type of things. So I appreciate that. You being a good sport with that.
Thanks, Maurice.
You're welcome. And I thank each and every one of you for listening to That Will Nevr Work podcast. And I'll talk to you just a little bit later.
Thanks for listening. Follow Maurice Chism on social media to stay connected and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work. Or will it?